Hi, everyone. We are super excited to come back. We had a little bit of a break because we ended up getting busy with development, but we are excited to be back and chat about what's been going on at Nochi Studios. This is the first time that we have Kira on, which we are excited about, and hopefully you guys get to learn a lot about what's happening behind the scenes with Kira here. But I will let Kira introduce herself.
Alrighty. Hello. I'm Kira, and I am Nochi's programmer right now. I've been working with the studio for about 2.5 years now, I think. So yeah, I've been working since the Somnium 11 days until now.
It's crazy how time flies. I think we were like
Mhm.
talking about the other day of like, okay, what are the like the milestones? It's like, wait, how have we developed a game so fast? And yeah, it's amazing. But you've been through it so much, and you started as an intern, right? And now you've like
Mhm.
seen multiple titles go through, which is awesome. So really quickly, a few housekeeping things. We are super excited to try this a little bit different and show behind the scenes. With that being said, you are more than welcome, chat, to drop questions anytime, and we'll try to get to them. We'll keep an eye on it, or just keep messaging in the chat, and we'll definitely keep an eye. Um, if we don't get to it during the stream, we can talk about it in our Discord server. We'll drop a link later in our description of the podcast, but feel free to check it out there, and we will have follow-ups if needed. We are also super excited to share that we will be launching Sweetcore Brews on October 12th. We can talk a little bit about behind the scenes for that too, but that is official. We made an announcement to it to the public. It wasn't going out to social media, not a huge public announcement, but we did announce it to the public a little bit quietly. And then we've also had Untold Atlas launched on Steam for almost maybe 3-4 weeks now. I think we launched it sometime in mid-August. So that was during all the Sweetcore Brews development. So please check it out if you haven't so yet. But we are super excited to talk about Sweetcore here tonight, and then hopefully give you guys more details about what's happening. So with that being said, we'll just get right into it. Kira, do you want to share with everyone what you've been working on since the Kickstarter ended for Sweetcore around like end of July?
Yeah, it's been a lot of cleanup and quality of life improvements, I guess. So it's been like little things, I guess, but it feels really good to get them out of the way. And our like base for all the functionality and our features is like I'm pretty strong right now, and I think I'm happy with the state of things, I guess. So now we've started testing, and so now I'm guessing it's just little fixes as things come up, and putting the finishing touches on everything.
I feel like you say little fixes, but at the same time, they're like sometimes annoying because just so much things
Mhm.
come up. Do you have an example of something that like people might not think about in terms of annoyances that like we have to deal with?
Um, yeah, I think. Well, I guess in my head, first of all, the like little fixes is something that doesn't take me too much brain power to do, but they definitely aren't exactly little. Sometimes, like the Android build recently for Sweetcore completely had no text in it, like at all. There was just no text. And the fix was it was literally just like a setting that had been checked in the build that the like text disagreed with. So it was an easy fix, but that is kind of an annoying workaround that I had to do.
Yeah, I feel like all these things add up over time though. Like they might be fast fixes, but it sort of sometimes takes away from like things that we are trying to focus on.
Hmm.
Because as a studio, we typically start every week. We do something called agile methodology where we have sprint meetings. We're like, okay, this week we want to focus on this task. For an example, I don't know, Kira, if you can say like what one of the tasks that you were going to focus on this week is.
Um, I've been like ad hoc adding tasks this week, so it's a little bit wonky, but I think one of the tasks was that I added at least was like doing some cleanup in the login flow, like UI that was like detached and for the mobile specifically. Um, oh, and then there was some like new data came in for the unlockable like collectible assets in the game, so I was like hooking the back end up and fixing things for that.
Yeah. And then while you're doing that, like a few of us on the team, and we also opened alpha testing with our Ko-Fi members. So thank you, Ko-Fi members, for always supporting us. And we are super happy that you've been able to test and get a first sneak peek before everyone else. But in between, like me, our interns testing, we like ping you all the time with bugs. And it's like you're trying to work on this, but then it's like, oh shit, we gotta fix these bugs as well in order to have things look good, right? To get it ready for Ko-Fi backers or also to our Kickstarter backers, which we hope to start testing soon next week. If all goes well, we have some additional testing to do over the weekend and some prep work, but yeah. So we actually have a question that came in. So hi Aria, thank you for joining us. How did you decide on the Mad Libs and Match 3 games for Sweetcore, and were they hard to program? I think this question is in terms of like why we decided to pick those two mini games features. So from that aspect, we very early on, when we sat down and started planning out the game, which it was actually back in February. So we were in the middle of Untold Atlas development. So Kira, I think you were sort of stressed at that time, right? Because you were doing a
Yeah.
lot of work between the two. So I might hand the baton to you to talk about it a little bit. But in terms of this question, a group two of us were like done with huge primary work that was needed for Untold Atlas. So like we were starting to plan ahead and like doing concept development work for Sweetcore. And then poor Kira here was balancing two projects at once. And at that time, we wanted to do like a hyper casual game because we were focusing on mobile format and like we really love the Tea Witch theme and like we've played games together as a team. What is that game called, Kira? That like we basically backseat driving while you were playing.
Yeah, that was Little Witch in the Woods on
So
Steam.
yeah, I think all of us on the team love like witchy themes, and so mini match three mini game just sort of made sense because we can lean on the witchy ingredients aspect. And if there was more time, like we would love to maybe look into more things with that and upgrade the Match 3 mini game. But as of now, this is sort of where it's at. And then for the Mad Libs part, you I don't know how to describe it. I think we just thought it was really funny and it just made sense for the whimsy aspect of it. You can sort of see elements of it from Untold Atlas where we had like some of a gamification of that mini game where things would just pop up automatically. But like we wanted to take it to the next level of having the user input stuff instead. And sort of like Mad Libs made sense and started testing that out. So there's always like in between all of our games, there's like bits and pieces that we like to take from inspiration from, just because like, hey, like this worked well, this didn't work well, and then we also just think about like what kind of features we want to put in for the game, the current game that we're working on that would fit the vibe. So in this case, whimsy, magic, mistakes, mixing, brewing, all that stuff. So it was more thematic, I would say. And I'll pass it to you, Kira, to answer like the programming part, and also if you want to talk about the time when we were concept developing Sweetcore and you were balancing Untold Atlas at the same time.
Yeah. I guess first for the programming part, our intern right now, our like dev intern actually took care of a vast majority of the Madlib programming, so I can't speak too much to that. But the Match 3 minigame was all me, and it was really fun to program. It wasn't too hard because Match 3 games are like tried and true. I feel like in the industry, like there's a lot of resources. If I was ever curious about like an implementation method or like how people go about doing, the movement or something like an animation, there was lots of things to reference online. So yeah, it was fun getting to understand, I guess, the back end like workings of a match 3 game by programming it myself. So that was fun. And I know like our intern she's like done a lot of work with the um like the way the text appears on the Mad Lib. So that was cool getting to see the improvements every time she had more fixes for it.
Yeah. So Jasmine's our intern's name right now, and she's done like not only that, but like little small things that people I think have noticed. The other really cool thing is like the T cutout that people see. So kudos to her. I think it looks really nice and it's like a nice transition between everything. I feel like she did something else recently that was like really nice. Like we call it juicification, right? Like how to up up the game a little bit, make it sprucier. I don't know what the right term is, but like we say, make it juicy, right? But yeah, that's Jasmine's been an all-star for that for sure. Let's see. Next question that we have is I guess I should probably answer what I've been working on since Kickstarter has been over. I forgot about that. Okay, so what I've been working on the team is so I do a lot of the coordination between all the moving pieces and making sure that everything gets implemented, and then also conversing with external partners. So as some of you guys might know, that we have a partnership with Dorian, which we're excited about, as they own like the Arcana IP, which is really exciting, and they have a great community base. So I've been doing a lot of work with the external partners and also with like our Ko-Fi members. So thank you again, Ko-Fi members, for putting up with me all the time, and then doing Kickstarter stuff. Along with that, that was this past week, pretty much. And then what I will be doing moving forward is starting to disseminate all the amazing scripts that Alexandra has written for all of our episodes, chapters, and breaking them all out, editing them, getting them ready for the game so that we can rebuild and add more content for our testers, hopefully next week. That is the goal. But yeah, I guess like with that, we do run into challenges sometimes, like not only from a workflow perspective, but we do run into challenges where we have to get approvals a lot, from third-party people. Kira, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about like the most recent approval challenges that you had to deal with, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the most recent one was for, what was it? I think Apple did it. I think it was originally we had like the first build I guess that we had submitted for review was like the AR feature only. So there was like literally just like, you know, the camera scene where you would look at the AR image. And then the next one that we uploaded was more of a full build of the game, like that had been on the demo itch.io page. And then because of like the difference, we didn't give them a login information so they could actually get in to play the game. And we just didn't realize we didn't do that, but they approved it anyways. So it was like fine, and like people got in to test it. But then as soon as we made an update, they rejected it because they couldn't play the game. They didn't have a login. So
Yeah,
kind of
it was
wonky.
so funny because we're like, we never would have thought of that until we read all the comments from the rejection rate. And I think we had made something for Google already.
Yeah, we
but it
did.
was just Apple that we forgot. And that's the weird thing about like approval processes. It's not a systematic thing. Like there's an actual person that's like approving these app builds. So we can see anywhere from like, for Sifting Time, actually, it took over a month to get it first approved. And it was a very, very painful process. Versus, I want to say for Untold Atlas, it was like instantaneously within like 48 hours or something. We're
Yeah,
like, what the heck?
just a couple days for sure.
So it's not consistent, and sometimes it has wonky stuff like that where like a prior build got approved, and then suddenly the next build there's a problem where that problem had been existing for like weeks, and it's like no one else has called out on it. So it's very wonky. It's a very human process. So yeah, that's what I've been working on and what we've all been working on to get the build ready. Our next question is, what is your biggest concern with development right now for Sweetcore?
I would say the unknown is always a concern, I guess, specifically with you never know if there's like some bug hiding in the edge cases where like just no one has stumbled upon it yet. Um, I'm not as worried as I was in the past, like given the difference between Somnium and then Untold Atlas. I feel like there was the fear for Untold Atlas too, but it never came up. Like there was never some drastic thing like broken out there. So I'm a bit more confident now that we've moved past those days, but it is always in the back of my mind, I guess, that the big bugs could be out there.
Yeah, I mean, for Somnium, I think we stayed up till like 5 a.m. 2 nights in a row, like after launch, right? And I remember
Mhm.
bringing cookies to you because I'm like, "Are you
Yeah.
alive?" Because it's just like we had so many players, and they were like those edge cases that we didn't. We did so much testing for 2 months, but then there was just things that we didn't catch, and even with like I think we had 200 testers for Somnium 11.
Mhm.
And with the 200 testers, like no one somehow caught that through the hundreds of hours of testing. Um, and so, yeah, you had a fun time at Somnium launch of
Yeah.
staying up super, super late. And that's sort of the difficult thing is that we are a very small team. So it's not like we can pass off the baton and be like, okay, tap out. I'm gonna get some sleep. It's your turn. So yeah, I guess it's is it exciting? I don't know. It's exciting if it goes well and we have a great
Mhm.
problem, right? But in that particular case, it was not a great problem, I felt
Yeah.
like. Um,
I
but
think
yes.
we've like learned from our mistakes though.
Yeah, for
Especially
sure.
like me specifically, I feel like that definitely I I guess especially the Somnian stuff, I just really learned like how not to do that again.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we're much better at scoping now, which is why you guys see us
Mhm.
consistently pumping out titles, and we have a pretty good idea of how fast we can make things and how to deal with these kinds of blockers. But for me, for that question of like what I'm most concerned about is making sure everything gets approved on time.
Yeah.
So we just talked about Apple and Google, right? But now we have a whole other player, which is Steam. Now, as you guys know, in the past, when we did launches, we did rollout launches because that was the easiest way for us to handle all the issues. Like, I mean, we don't want to have Akira like up at 5 a.m. like a whole week in a row, right? So we did rollout launches where for mobile, we rolled out to the US first, US and Canada. Same time zone, right? So like we can handle the number of support tickets. It was a lot of support tickets, but like at least we can handle it in our own time zone. And then we slowly opened it out to international time zones because like we would like to get some sleep, guys. um, and then we just recently were able to have everything work for Steam, and Untold Atlas is our first Steam title. And then for Sweetcore, since we were able to make that happen, we're like, you know what, we're gonna launch everything all at once, as we said earlier, on October 12th. So you guys can imagine the stress levels. Well, at least for me, I feel like I'm gonna be really stressed out the like week before to make sure like, okay, is Apple on it? Apple's not gonna pull the like 2 week like rejection, rejection, rejection.
Yeah.
Hey, like you were approved for this prior, but now we're rejecting you. So that's my biggest fear is getting a wonky rejection in the process and being like, oh crap, we have to do it now. Like we have to do whatever
Mhm.
they're asking us to do. Um, yeah. Let's see. Any other questions from chat? And yes, midnight care cookies are a thing. I think oh, it was not insomnia cookies. I think I brought over a local cookie
Yeah, it
store
was what
shop.
is it like
I think it was
Detroit
Detroit.
Cookie Co.
Yeah.
company? I don't remember
Yeah.
the name of it, but yeah.
They're in Ann Arbor, guys. We're located in Ann Arbor. So yeah, it was a local cookie shop. um, let's see. We have a question. Thank you, Arya, for who is your favorite Nochi character? You want to take that, Kira?
Um yeah, I think I I really like you from Somnium 11 because I was the one who wrote most if not all of her like tweets and DMs from the game that you get as a player. So I got attached to her, I think.
And that's the other thing. Like, you don't only just do programming, like, you do writing too. And, like,
No,
basically, since we're so small, like, it's just like, hey guys, all hands on deck, we need help here. And so people jump in to fill in the gaps when we just need to get stuff done. Um, for me, oh my gosh, it's really hard.
it is hard.
Um, I think right now I actually really like Millie. I like just Millie's whimsy magicalness and her sass that she has and being able to stand up to Zero and Kingsley in her own way. So I'm really enjoying her as a character, but we'll leak this here because we had pre-talked about this. So like, okay, like what can we share? What can we not share? So we shared with our Ko-Fi backers recently that we were all in Ann Arbor again for 2 weeks in August. So that's also what we were working on, which is why we didn't have a podcast for a while. Is that we were in Ann Arbor for 2 weeks because we have begun concept developing our next studio title after Sweetcore Brews. So I'm actually excited for one of the potential characters for that new title, but we can't quite share details yet. And it's also just not fully fleshed out. We typically just do like concept boards, mood boards, write out a few details, some general personality traits, things like that. But I really hope that you all will be interested in the new title. We will just say it's like Somnium 11 and Sweetcore Brews got married or like had a baby together. It's like that, the two combined. So take that for what you will. I think that's all we can share today. But yes, so that would be those would be my picks for favorite Nochi character. Let's see. The next question we have is Sweetcore Brews. It's going to have different endings like bad, good, true, or normal from Alana. Thank you for dropping that question in. It's not going to be your traditional endings like you have seen in our past games where like you really had to pick the right answer choices, right? And like meet the right people. It was very strategic and like you had to do a lot of like solving and discovering. Sweetcore Brews is a lot more straightforward. We really wanted to try that out because we thought that the gamification should come more from match 3 instead because you're already working hard enough to pass the match 3 levels, and so basically you get rewarded for the next scene in the next scene for that route that you're on. So it's not going to have your traditional endings in that sense. You just, if you achieve the match 3 game, you unlock the content. The next question we have, also from Alana, is it going to have the option to show the MC appearance on dialogue text? So typically in our games, since Sifting Time, and then so also for Somnium 11 and for Untold Atlas, we do not show MC. This is a decision that we made because we felt like we want to give people the chance to imagine a little bit more of the situation. And also, you could argue that maybe like people can self-insert there more, but for our games, for at least for Millie, it is a lot more of a stronger character. And we really want to write the story and sell the romance from her, not sell the romance, that sounds bad, but we really wanted people to experience the romance from her specific eyes and from her personality. However, with that being said, we have received quite a few comments about like, hey, are we able to change Millie's name? All these things. We made the active decision to not allow name change because we really want to drive that like home that Millie is like the star of the show and it's her awesome personality, her sassiness, and her interactions that's driving the kind of romance that you'll experience with Zero and Kingsley. But we also chose not to show her artwork as sort of like a way to appease, allow people to have more self-insertion. Because we do have players who are male players, for an example, and unfortunately, while we weren't able to raise enough funding, sadly, to have like like a male counterpart of Millie, we would love to do that one day for our games. This way, it sort of doesn't ruin the experience too much for other players who identify differently. So yeah. Let's see. We are going to go to a few of the lightning round questions that we typically have on our podcast since we are called Snack and Otome. So the one question that we always ask everyone who come on the podcast especially since this is your first time, Kira, is what is your favorite snack?
Yeah, mine is like some people might consider it more of a meal, but I think it's a snack. I have a little package here. It's actually this um stir fry style ramen. Indomie is the brand. This is just like the most basic flavor, like the original flavor, I guess. You could call it. But yeah, it's a pretty small portion, so I do like eating it as a little snack.
I will just say really quickly, just for funsies, I think that was no, was it the first time I met you? Maybe not. It was like the year that like we all for the first time after the pandemic, we finally met in person because we had been working remotely for a while, right? Like Nochi Studios, like we officially like incorporate we incorporated technically a little bit before, but like in terms of like pumping out titles and like this is the business and everything was in 2020. And then obviously the pandemic happened. And then when we hired Kira, it was during the pandemic. And so when we all showed up and like we stayed together for like these boot camp weeks, you showed up for the boot camp week, and I remember you bringing the packets of the ramen,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Wait, what is this? This is awesome!" So that is like one of my first memories of in person. Kira was the ramen that you brought over for boot camp week. So, yeah,
It's good.
we do have another question from the audience. From Aria, how do you handle if the team has differing opinions on things like story direction or dialogue? This doesn't happen too often. Usually we lay things out and discuss is a nice way to say it. Have heated discussion, right? Because like we want to make sure we're making like the best product possible. And the best story that we would want to tell, and like what are we trying to achieve for a title. All those heated conversations, and like I would like to think we're all really nice people, so it's like we're direct about like, hey, I don't know if that's the right idea, or like I'm not sure if I agree with that, but nothing is ever said in like a that's stupid, right? Like we don't say things like that. Like just be professional. So we're pretty professional about it. We're nice people, but we do call out that like if we don't agree with something and it should go in a different direction. And all that happens in the boot camp week. So the 2 weeks where we're just working in person. This past time in August, we actually were working on the weekends as well because we were just like, we got to crank all this out. We got to figure it out. Also because like Sweetcore was happening at the same time, so it was a lot of work. But that's the best way for us to make sure that we're hashing every detail out in terms of direction and flow. Dialogue ends up coming later, but as long as we are aligned on like personality traits, things that we want to happen in the flow of the story, for the most part, everything works out in the end. We'll do reviews, like script reviews and things like that, and we'll discuss things, follow-ups on Discord later if there's like a concern in terms of like something that's happened or that's in the script. But usually the concept stuff happens super early, so we don't have a lot of these later on. And it's more just like making sure it makes sense, or is it clear in terms of like world building, things like that. Hopefully that answers that question. Oh, for me, snack. So I've already shared my favorite snack before, but like I guess since I'm returning, I'll talk about what I've been eating instead. So I actually went to Israel, and I think I shared this where we shared, the behind the scenes stuff. So I went to Israel for Nochi, because we are invested by the University of Michigan, and they had this program where we went to Israel as like one of the cohort staff to talk to other startups, investors, things like that. It's a lot of networking, a lot of business dinners, things like that. So when I went to Israel, I bought a ton of halva. So for those who don't know, it's like a sesame-based dessert. So I've been eating through my halva recently because it's like a little healthier than like sugar cookies, right? So yeah, that's what I've been up to, is eating this from bringing back from Israel. Let's see. Okay, so the next question that we have for Lightning, as a wrap up, is Kira, what are 3 things you can't live without at work? And it could be anything. It could be things that you wear, things that's like on your desk. food, drink, whatever it is.
I think the first one would be these headphones. Because I'm almost constantly listening to music while working. Like like I'll even have it in the background of our meetings half the time, like just like low volume, just to have the background noise, I guess. So that the headphones would be number one. Um, and then probably these glasses. Second, I don't actually need glasses. They're just blue light glasses, but they really help a lot because my eyes get really dry from like staring at the screens for too long. And whether it's placebo or not, I am convinced that these help me. So I think I wear them like all day. And then third thing would be iced coffee, which I have every day for like half the day probably. I only drink one cup, but it does take me a good couple hours to get through it.
You make a really good iced coffee. That's another like early
Thank
memory
you.
that I have of you when we like were finally in person that you made iced coffee for the team and it was so good.
I do my
Yeah.
best.
Awesome. Well, we are at time. So that's what we have to share with everyone for this podcast episode. Hopefully, you all liked to hear what happens behind the scenes. We'll try to do these a little bit more, and then we have a few guests planned, hopefully, in the upcoming weeks. Yeah, we think you all might be really excited for one of the guests that we are working on to appear on the podcast. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments or even drop them in our Discord server. We will definitely answer them and like we might save them up for the next podcast. Just a really quick plug: if you haven't followed us on our socials, please check us out. You can find us at Nochi Studios on Instagram. I always still say Twitter, even though it's X, but Twitter is also at Nochi Studios. And then also on Tumblr, we are also on TikTok as well. And then our Sweetcore Brews pre-order store is up. So because it is a pre-order store, it will only be up for a very short time. We'll probably it'll probably be closed down by the end of the month because then we are getting ready for launch and everything will be available on Steam, etc. So if you're interested in getting a discount early on before having no access and then paying at full retail at launch, please check out the pre-order store. And then lastly, Untold Atlas did release on Steam. So again, it's our first Steam foray. And that was released in August. So if you haven't played Untold Atlas yet, one, you can download it for free on mobile. But if you don't want to have to deal with like in-app transactions or anything, you can just pay a one-time price for the entirety of the game on Steam and play everything at your own pace. So thank you for joining us again, everyone. And we hope that you'll join us again for future behind the scenes updates and also for future guests that we'll bring on. And thanks, Kira, for joining us for the first time. Hopefully you'll be back to share more on the dev side. Thanks, everyone. Bye.